Good evening, good evening, good evening. I hope you're having a great evening. It's raining here in Birmingham, and so it's cold, it's raining. I hope you're in and settled and you don't have to go out there in the storm. I'm Dr. Larrell Wilkinson, and welcome to our Monday Night Wellness Watch. This is what, the third one, I think the third one of the spring 22 semester. And, we're having a good time with these. If you haven't caught our previous wellness labs, then I invite you to check out the Wellness Watch from the 7th of February, where we talked about healthy mind, body, and soul. And then last Monday, we sent out a Valentine's Day card. Y'all joined us and we talked about healthy love. And it's just so exciting to see. I think last time I checked out the Facebook page to see how many views we had got, I think we had over 150 views looking at our topic on healthy love. And so tonight we got some brothers with us. We got Mr. Damian Anderson with us. Wave, Damian, Mr. Anderson. And we got DeCorey Hale with us. Wave, DeCorey. And then myself, Larrell Wilkinson, and we're talking about men's health. We're talking about healthy men and what it takes to be healthy, what our health journey look like, and also what it means for us to be healthy so that as men, we can be pillars in our community. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. So look, sit back, relax, have a good time with us this evening. If you, as always, please engage us at Wilkinson Wellness Lab on Facebook. That way you can write some questions. We got some of my intern team who are going to be looking at the questions, asking us questions live as we talk. You can always check out the discussion at the Wilkinson Wellness Lab at wilkinsonwellnesslab.com. And, we're joined also, you got Sean here, as always, we got Sean here. Saniqua's going to be with us in a little bit, Saniqua Malone. And then my community partner, Miss Dorothy McAdory is with us as well. And so she's going to kick off, hit us up with some wisdom as well and ask us some tough questions, guys. So I don't know if I'm ready for Mrs. McAdory's questions. I don't know if I'm ready for Sean's either. Look, the questions are unscripted. Yes, we've done some research. Yes, we have some topics of men's health, but they can really ask us anything. And we're going to be an open book tonight and tell you how we truly feel, because sometimes men don't open up, and so we've all agreed that we're going to be honest and transparent tonight. So you got us. And DeCorey Hale is an author, and he's also going to talk about his journey as an author and writing a book about health issues. So let's have a good time. Sean, why don't you go ahead and kick us off, or Saniqua, it's all on you. Ask the questions, get us started, and pick out a person who you want to ask the question to, and let's go.
Go, or you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead. Sean, you got it. You're off mute. Go ahead. You go.
I'm trying to pull my thing back up. So my question would be, I lost my questions. Okay, my question would be for all three of you, and you can just take turns answering. What are some of the, how important is health, overall health, to you guys, and at what age did you kind of start getting into taking care of yourself?
That's all. And let me just add this one thing too. As you answer this first question, I think we should, kind of introduce ourselves too. So, but that's a good question.
Yeah. Well, introduce yourselves first.
Go
ahead,
David. First. Okay, DeCorey's got it.
Well, my name is DeCorey Hale. I'm 38. Well, no, 39. I'm sorry. From Sylacauga, Alabama. And what really got me into the health journey was last year, working on a farm and just doing a lot of walking. And I realized how tired I was, just doing everyday activities. And I have two children, 2 and 8 months. So it's hard, it's hard running behind them and, not being out of breath. And so those are some of the factors that I thought about, as well as, actually being there for them in the long run. So that, so that affected, my behavior as far as, getting my life together, so to speak, and deciding that I need to lose some weight and, and get healthy.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Damien, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Okay, my name is Damian Anderson. I'm 49, I'm 48, about to be 49, and I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. I will agree with the brother that, as you get older, especially as a Black man, you start to have to check, certain issues like prostate, you have to, and there are certain issues that hit our community. And that's really what got me more involved in my health, because I didn't think about it when I was younger. I was always active. I was always doing something. So I didn't think about going to the gym. But as you get older, you tend to slow down. And I was a cigar smoker. So I am a cigar smoker. So I started, there are factors that contributed to me really taking health seriously, my health, walking, being more active, and not slowing down as much as you would when you get older. So as Black men, we really have to get our prostates checked. We have to get our colonoscopies, and we have to really be serious about those annual exams. And that's really what jump-started my health journey.
That is absolutely great. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing that. And I like something that you two said that, you all thought about when getting older, and you call 30s and 40s like getting older, which I can see what you're saying from a teen to 20s and everything. So what about the ones that are in their teens and they're in their 20s? How could it happen sooner? Like, do you think like majority of them like have to be athletes or have that role model? How do you think we can kind of get men to think about their health even sooner? What probably would have helped you?
I think.
Well, go ahead.
Okay, I think we all have our breaking points, and I think sometimes until we reach that breaking point, we're not going to change. You can tell somebody, hey, I think you might want to work out or lose a little weight, or you can stand to lose a little weight, or I want to see you healthy. But until they get to that point where they feel like it's necessary, like I said, for me, it was, doing chores at the farm and just getting tired. And I'm like, man, 10 years ago, I would have done this 2 times over, and not even let out a deep breath. And so that was my breaking point. And and I was at work one day, and I walked past the mirror. We have a full-length mirror in the bathroom, and I walked by and I looked and I saw my stomach poking out a little bit. Sometimes you catch yourself and you're like, man, I got caught slipping. So you try to pull your stomach back in really quick. And I was in there squeezing as hard as I could, and it came in like, poop. And that was all I got. And so I went and got on the scale. And from that point on, I was like, I got to do something. So, so that's kind of what, for me, that was my breaking point. So I think, like I said, until you get to that point, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and I will agree that mirror plays a factor. We grow up, when you're younger, every holiday there's a big meal, your diet's not right, and you really don't think about it because, like you said, you're always outside, you're always being active, you're always doing something. A lot of us grew up playing basketball, football, spending a lot of time outside. And as you get older and you have kids, you begin to realize you want to be there for your kids. You want to, as you see your aunts and uncles with health issues that seem to be generational, you kind of want to break that. You kind of want to not have issues with diabetes, not have issues with high blood pressure. And like I said, that mirror plays a factor. Once you become, you get in your 30s and your 40s and you walk past that mirror and you don't think you're as good looking as you once were, you try to get back there.
Right.
So But yeah, so one of the main things for me, I guess, like you said, breaking point was, I had to look back at my uncles mainly and say, I want to kind of not have to go to the doctor with a whole bunch of pills, and so that was a bad factor for me. And it's kind of strange because my mom's a nurse. So that was kind of the factor for me. I wanted to kind of break those things. So, and luckily, and I've been fortunate that I've been healthy and I've not had to do that, but that was one of the goals for me.
Got a question for either one. And I guess maybe I can start with you, DeCorey. Question is, do you remember when you were younger, were you carried to the doctor's office?
Do I remember what now?
Do you remember when you were younger going to see a pediatrician or going to see your family doctor?
I do.
Okay, do you remember at what point were you talked? My thing is communication. Were you talked about your health at that time? And where is it that the conversation stopped about health? Or was there ever a question about health? Or did you just go and get a checkup and say you were all right and nothing else was ever discussed? So one of the things I'm thinking is that if we start to communicate with our children about health, start them on a journey about thinking about what happens when you don't eat broccoli, what happens when you don't eat protein,
Right.
These are things that I think a conversation needs to begin early with African American men about going to the doctor. You tell me what you think, because I want to know where the stopping point was, because somewhere between you being carried to the doctor and between, it seems like a fear factor. I don't want to know what's going on with me. Something happened and you didn't look back at yourself any further until you passed the mirror. And you go like, God, what happened between? Okay. All right.
Right. I think the disconnect comes once we do, once we do get older. Because you go to college and you're kind of on your own. So you don't really think about it. Because like you said, you don't have anyone holding your hand and saying, hey, don't forget this, or don't forget your appointments this time, or don't forget today is this day. You're kind of on your own. So it's a lot of things that you're learning on the fly, so to speak. And a lot of things that you just kind of take for granted, and fear does play a factor in it. Sometimes you may know someone that was diabetic or had cancer or whatever, and you're like, well, if I don't know, I'll be better off. I think about a guy that I work with when the Delta variant came through, and a lot of people at work were, they were getting COVID, and 3 of them, they were all working together. Well, we got the call that one of the guys that we were with, had it, and we probably need to go get checked. So I went and got tested. I was negative. And when I came back to work, I remember him telling me that he never even got checked because he was like, he didn't want to know, because if he would have found out, he would have just worried himself to death. So, so those are things that you look at too. Some people are just like, man, I may just be better off not knowing.
Is that a selfish thought for your family? What if you don't know? How's that going to leave your family? I think it is. And but sometimes we have to get to the and that's what I told him. I sat down and talked to him, and I'm like, man, this thing is running rampant right now. You probably need to tell at least your wife and your kids. I think by him being exposed to someone that had it, he was already off. I think we had 10 days at the time, because this was last year. But at the same time, you're looking at your wife and kids every day. So you should at least tell them, or just say, hey, this is what's going on. I'm going to quarantine just in case.
Yeah.
So.
I think the other thing to think about too is you were asking when that point is. You know, we go to the doctor because when we're young, because we're playing sports and we got to get a physical.
Right.
We go to the doctor because, you know, maybe our parents were good about making sure we got our checkup. But then, you know, you go to the military and you're gonna get a physical because the military is gonna make you. You go to college and you ain't going to the doctor unless something wrong.
Right.
And you're just not going to the doctor unless something wrong. That's all I'm gonna say. Some of y'all know what wrong means. and and so you know you're not going to go see the old pediatrician because you're grown now. So you're not going, and you don't have a annual exam like women do. And so you might go, if you're in college, you might really go through a long period of time before you see a doctor, just keeping it real. And so, you know, for me, you know, just thinking about it, you know, I didn't really go to see a doctor until I had health insurance again. Because when I was young, you know, we didn't have, you know, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, university policies for health insurance. So when I was a student, we didn't have health insurance. We couldn't stay on our parents' health insurance for a while. You got that now, but we didn't have that. So for a lot of men, especially men my age, you know, we broke away from the doctor. So I remember when I got a real job again with benefits and I went to the doctor, and by that time, shortly thereafter, I was diagnosed pre-diabetic, high cholesterol. Because I was eating free foods because I was living like impoverished, right? Or like a broke college student, broke graduate student. And so I was eating free food where I could get it, wasn't worried about no nutritional value, certainly was not counting calories, thought I was active enough where I was healthy. And then I'd wake up and go to the doctors, you know, in my late 20s with health insurance, and they're like, you're pre-diabetic and you got high cholesterol.
Right.
You know, because we really kind of went through our whole 20s in that sense without going to a real doctor for anything like a checkup with blood work. We only went when we had problems.
And then kind of going back to, you know, going back to what I said earlier about passing that, you know, passing the mirror. A lot of times we do go by the eye test, so to speak. Yeah. We just, you know, we go in and we're like, my stomach's still in, you know, my chest is still okay. You know, I can still see my neck is kind of defined. I'm okay. I'm good. And we just go about our business. And then it's not until, you know, body parts are sagging or your stomach is bagging out a little bit, you know, and it's like, oh, and now it's like, man, I got a lot of work to do. When you could have caught the problem at 5 pounds overweight or even 10 pounds. And next thing you know, you're 60 or 70 or 80 or even 100 pounds overweight. And you're like, man, I got to do something, you know, because now it's getting detrimental because, you know, you have where you could have had maybe one problem, you could have been pre-diabetic. Now you have all these full-fledged health-related, you know, illnesses. So,
yeah.
So transitioning from that boyhood to manhood, there's a great big gap between there. When there was no conversation, you just kind of put everything back because I don't have it, I can't do it. And so what you don't want for your children is you want to continue to talk to them, you know, that they will not fear and they will ask questions. And as Dr. Wilkinson has said, you know, we have in place now insurance, you know, where we can get. So the main thing is not fear, it's trying to nurture the fear, okay? And I think, you know, boys can be nurtured as well. And I think if we start to do that, it might become a little less frightening for a man. And it's okay if you weigh 250 pounds or 300 and you are frightened. It's okay because you don't know. And that's one of the things is the unknown. But as soon as you find out, I think we need to do something about it and share with others. Then that's the main thing. And we want generations to change. We got to change to share where we are.
Absolutely.
Well, I think a lot of we we speaking on the fear now, but a lot of times it's out of sight, out of mind. Like it was said earlier, you know, as for me, I still remember my pediatrician, his name was Dr. Mumble. But after I started going to school and started playing sports, then you kind of went to the doctor if you broke your collarbone or you sprained your ankle or something. Then you went off to college and it was the same thing, only if there was something wrong. So even before the fear, it was out of sight, out of mind. You got used to living with a lot of those little nagging aches and pains.
Yeah.
You got used to, getting something over the counter and treating it yourself. So we just, and I must agree with you that we really must talk to the younger people about making those periodic doctor visits for young men a priority. We got to instill in them that, listen, you need your annual checkup. I know you don't have to wait till you're 30 and 40 to get that annual checkup. You need that annual checkup. And like I said, there are a lot of things that plague the Black community that we need to get on ahead of time. We need to get them before they get us. So
absolutely. And I think another thing that we got to keep real is, a lot of brothers don't want to take off work either, because you got to take off work to go get your checkup or to do some blood work. You're gonna miss a half a day or a full day's wages. And for a lot of folks, if they're working on the clock, that's a sacrifice. 4 hours is a sacrifice, 6 hours is a sacrifice. Everybody doesn't have the same type of luxuries as other folks. And so I think that's now we shouldn't consider a luxury. If we're not here, we ain't working. So, let's talk about that too, brothers. Like, if you 6 feet under, you ain't got to worry about work.
Exactly.
But I talk to a lot of brothers, in some of the programs and things, Miss McAdory, some of the work that we've done. And the brothers would be like, Doc, I'd love to be a part of your program, but I got to come to UAB and you're going to have me up there for 5-6 hours. I got to go to work, Doc. And I'm like, we can run some exams, do a fitness exam, and it's all free. But I'm going to miss, 5 hours, that's, so, I've talked to a lot of brothers about that too. And so I think that, that's another part of it too. It's like, we feel like we're giving up something to go get a checkup when we already feel okay. We feel okay, we look okay. So, that out of sight, out of mind is also like, I don't want to be inconvenienced when I feel all right.
Yeah, but we got to make it normal. We got to normalize straight teeth and being able to see and being healthy. You know what I'm saying? So we gotta, I know we gotta tell these brothers, I know you're gonna miss a little time, but you need to go to the doctor. You need to go to the dentist. You need to get your eyes checked. Absolutely. That's just important. Health is wealth.
Speaking. You're right about it. There's a question in the chat. I don't know if this came from Facebook or where it came from. Ladies, which one of y'all want to take this? Y'all see it? Well, while they're finding the question, I saw the comment. But brothers, one thing that I want to ask y'all is as we're thinking about it, can we talk a little bit about the emotional side of health if we be so vulnerable? Because we talked a lot about physical health, but what about our emotions? Like, were we impacted by COVID? Were we impacted by 2020? 2020 was like, I mean, I think about George Floyd. I think about Ahmaud Arbery. I think about people losing their jobs. What are y'all's thoughts about our emotional health?
I think you can be triggered by anything, honestly. For me, what triggered me was the fact that like for example, my work schedule. I work for Alabama Power, so it's 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 3 off. So I have plenty of time off to do other things. So being a children's author kind of falls right in line with my schedule, because even if I'm on night shifts, I can make it to a school. So I was used to, for the past for 4 years, I was used to being in a school 3 or 4 days out of the week. And then I just go to work, to the point that it was almost like, it was almost a full-time job, being an author as well. Well, when COVID hit, the school shut down. Matter of fact, I was at one of my friends' schools on March the 5th, and the school shut down on the 11th. And that was the last time I'd been in a school. I was out of schools for a year. And we went to what they call the COVID schedule at work. So we were working 1 week on and 1 week off. And I'll never forget that Monday. I was like, man, this is gonna be okay right here. I'm off. I'm gonna be off for a week. No, I was actually off for 2 weeks. And Tuesday, I was like, it's not too bad, because. And by that Wednesday, I wanted to get on the roof and jump off, because I was like, man, this is the most bored I've ever been in my life. So I was like, man, I don't like how are y'all, how are people doing this? How do people just sit around the house and not do anything? Because I had been used to, when I wasn't, when I wasn't working, I was at school. And so this was the first time that I was just like completely free. So, it's an adjustment. It's an adjustment to kind of figure out, okay, what's the next step? What do you do next? And it does take a toll on you, because you're trying to readjust to, your new life. Even now, I do school visits, but I don't do as many as I was doing, because of COVID protocols, of course. And some schools, a lot of schools aren't even accepting guests. Yes. So, so my thing is, how can I pivot and go on to the next thing, whether it be animations, or whether it be me videoing and just sending the videos to people, or, what do I do? And all of that kind of takes a toll, because you think about it. And a lot of times you try to, you kind of get panicked, even though you have time. You think, oh man, I got to get this done today. Or I got to get this done tomorrow, because people are depending on me. So it can definitely be detrimental, and and take a toll on you.
Yeah. Damon, what about you? How were you impacted by COVID or recent events, or all the things that are coming at us?
Well, as far as COVID goes, I work in IT, so I work for Regions Bank, and I work in IT. So I was able to transition from going to an office every day to going into the office sometimes to completely working from home. I was able to transition to that pretty easily myself. So, but I do know some people that it did take a toll, because some people need that contact. We're talking about emotional, but they need that contact where they can go see and talk. So as far as me, it worked out pretty well as far as I'm concerned. But since I'm at home, I have noticed, I'm sitting at home and I have the news on, and you do get an influx. You do get a influx of news and current events. You do get that data done, and you really have. And I think you really need to take time and put in perspective what's important, and you have to put in perspective what's important to you, and tune out the harmful information. So, so the transition for the COVID transition, what I had to do was I'm in my office now, and I don't have a TV in here. I'm thinking about getting one and put it in, but I don't have a TV in here because I don't want to sit down, and I don't want to get mentally weighed down about all the negativity that comes through the news, because I know that plays a real big part in your emotional health as well. because some people, you're sitting at home, you're alone, you really, and at the heart of COVID, you was at home, you really couldn't visit like you wanted to, and you didn't need to see a lot of negativity at that point. So I had to kind of watch what I took in, and I just kept a real good social network. I kept a real good social network. So emotionally, I think I fared pretty well. So
Good.
that was important to me. Real good network. Calling and checking on your friends. Hey, how are you doing? Even though you can't get out at the time you wanted to, even though you're not seeing each other and having lunch and talking all the time, we were still able to communicate and just knowing your boundaries, just knowing yourself, so you can protect yourself emotionally. So.
And I love that. I love that you said that. And it reminds me so much of self-love, because you have to have that filter. Like you said, there was some things that you looked at, what's important to you, and you were like conscious of that, and being health conscious also. So let me ask you this. So do you think there could be like a gap between like self-love that's needed for motivation to do things even earlier in life? I mean, it's good to know whenever we start, but if we could start sooner, do you think there's some gaps there?
Do I think there are definitely some gaps there, because a lot of times men don't open up to men. You know what I'm saying? We're too busy being boys, and we don't open up to each other. So when we get together, we're watching the game, and nobody's having that real deep conversation. You may talk about women, but you're not talking about relationships. So there is a gap there, and you just have to be conscious of what's going on. And I think Brother Hill said what you have to have sometimes for most guys, there's a trigger. There's a heartbreak or something, and then they become conscious of that area, because even in counseling, a lot of men will go to counseling and they're not completely open and honest with the counselor. So it still does them no good. So we have to be conscious, and we really have to check, especially as we get older. When we know better, we have to do better. So we have to check on each other. And so it's up to the older, more wise or mature gentlemen to help the younger guys out and say, hey, how are you really doing? You know what I'm saying? So like I said, a lot of times when I was younger and I was with the fellas, we didn't have conversations like this. We were watching the game, or we were going to the game, trying to play golf or shoot pool or doing something like that. But there was no conversations like this. This type thing didn't happen until you got older. So yeah, there was a gap. Like I said, when you were in college, you wasn't thinking about this. You weren't thinking about really physical health. You was active and playing basketball, but you weren't thinking about physical health and going to the doctor. So, and that's the same way with your emotional and mental health. You were studying and you were trying to get ready for the next day. So you really weren't taking time and doing any kind of introspect or anything like that. So yeah, there's definitely a gap. So once you got older, then you started thinking about those things. So I think there's definitely a gap.
Corey, what you think?
This kind of goes back to what I said earlier, and it's not only in health, but it's with a lot of things. If you don't have anyone to hold your hand, sometimes we just kind of lose focus of it. One of the things that's helped me is I'm in a group chat on Facebook. I think it's maybe 14 or 15 of us, all younger Black guys. And that's kind of where we go and vent, where there's mental health, physical health, things going on as far as relationships. And we do a weekly video chat, where we just get on there and we just kind of check in with each other, and that's helped me because honestly, and for a lot of those guys, myself included, had they not formed that group, you know, a lot of us would still probably be out there just wandering around trying to figure it out. You know, so I think, you know, I think it's important, you know, not only to have self-love, but to also have some people that you can hold accountable and some people that'll hold you accountable. You know, because I have one guy, he goes to the gym every morning at 3:30 every morning. And so he's the first person in the group chat every morning. He wake up, Kings, it's time to rain. He says it every day. And I may not get it till 7 or 8 o'clock, but you know, it hits me when I, you know, it hits me when I need it. And, you know, and we kind of just get our day started from there. So like I said, I think it's important that, you know, that you have somebody that can help you fill that gap in, you know, because a lot of us are just wandering around trying to figure it out, especially with COVID. And like I said, you know, I think it taught me, I think the pandemic taught me how much, you know, I like writing books and, you know, talking to the kids and stuff. I'm very passionate about it, but I don't think I really understood how much a part of my life it had become until it was just taken away from me. And the thing is, it wasn't gradual. It was just like, boom, schools are closed. Don't show up, get your kids out, and we'll let you know something. And then it got to the point where, hey, we'll bring the kids back, but you can be on Zoom. And now it's just to the point where you're tired of Zoom, the kids are tired of Zoom, and you're just trying to get them motivated. And as a children's author, it's very hard to get kids motivated over a computer screen. You know, you kind of need to be in their face, 101, you know, with them, or, you know, in a group setting, so they can kind of talk to you and they can kind of reach out to you. So it's very hard to do it over the internet, so to speak. So, but like I said, you know, thank God for that group, because it's helped me out a lot.
That is awesome. And I think it's good to, you know, have mentors, motivators, role models. Would you guys say that you had that personally growing up too? Like someone you could probably have that talk or help guide you in some of the right directions, being young men?
As for me, yes.
You too.
I did. I mean, I had several uncles. I also had a mentor, and you know, my father. So yeah, that definitely helps.
Right. And I like.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say, you know, same here. You know, I had my father, my uncles, older cousins that I looked up to. You know, it kind of kept me on the right track. So that helped a lot.
Good. And you know,
Saniqua, I'm gonna jump in for a second, and I'm glad my dad's not watching. I had so I had models of good, bad, and indifferent, right? So I had folks who were in my family, men who were smoking, you know, cigarettes and stuff like that. We know that's not the thing to do. I'm not making any judgments. I'm just saying that, I mean, generally speaking, most people know, we ate good food. You know, I'm not talking about the healthy food right now. I'm talking about soul food. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying soul food is wrong. I'm just saying you can't eat it every day. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm thinking about my dad and you know, growing up, my dad always had a tennis racket around, but he never used it. And you know what? And I found out this later, and this is what I want to interject. I'm going to get in so much trouble, but you know, I found out later he gave up tennis when the kids came. So I came first, then my sister, then my brother, and I've never seen him pick up the tennis racket again. Now I will say he did coach us in our sports for a while, but he wasn't running the laps with us. He was blowing the whistle and telling us what to do, right? And then when he tried to, this is where I'm going to get in trouble for the fourth time right now. When he tried to, you know, play on the field with us, well, me and him went for the soccer ball. I played soccer. I broke his ankle. So now I'm in so much trouble, y'all. but real talk, so, when Decoy talks about trying to get back in shape so he can chase around his kids, and I'm doing the same thing. That's one of the ways that me and Decoy bonded when we were volunteering at a local school here in Birmingham, was we was talking about health growing up. He was talking about weightlifting and football. I was talking about running and soccer. And so, it's like now we're coming back to it, partially because we want to be active with our families, because what happens is, I think for a lot of men who are family oriented, we put down our activities that help keep us physically active, help keep our stomachs in, and help us to de-stress, because we put our families first. And it's not that we shouldn't put our families first, because we should. But what we also have to recognize is what Ms. McAdory talks about as well, is that in order to put our families first, sometimes we got to be, first in model good behavior as well. And so that means jogging and eating healthy and doing the things that's going to keep us healthy so that we can be healthy, not just modeling for our families, but so that we can help promote, protect, and profess our families as well. So, and I know you and me, Decoy, I'm sure we talked about it. We talked about it. Damien, you look like you about to say something though too on that.
No, well, I can agree. My son's actually about to graduate University of Alabama, but I remember those days when I stopped being active and I was the parent sitting in the bleacher at the football practice, and so yeah, I can totally agree. You do kind of put down what your activities, a lot of your activities, and pick up, to help them be active and participate. And then as we get older, our activities become more leisurely. I mean, we go home. We don't play tennis, but we'll play golf and we'll ride around in the golf cart. You know what I'm saying? So,
ride around
a lot of guys stop running, and when they get older, they stop running. They buy a motorcycle. So now you just ride a motorcycle from one restaurant to another. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I can definitely agree. I remember stop doing a lot of things that I used to do when my son was being active, and I was that parent sitting in the bleacher watching him, pointing out, telling him what he should be doing, criticizing what he's doing wrong. And he was running laps, and I probably couldn't run 10 yards. so yeah, I can definitely agree.
Yeah.
All right, well, my question is this. I would like to know, how has your nutrition changed? What do you do daily that's making a difference in how you eat? What supplements are you doing to stay healthy? What's your regimen for lifestyle change? Now that you know that in order to make a difference, to have a different kind of result, some changes must take place.
That's a good question.
I'll go. My normal regimen is, because I was working swing shifts. So, I may work 2 days on day shifts and then I'll go on nights. So I always try to go to the gym, at least 5 days a week. Some days, some weeks 6 or 7. And for me, it was just really cleaning up what I ate and how I ate and the timing of it. I try to eat immediately after leaving the gym. I count my calories, and I have days where I do a water fast. Just 24 hours, nothing but water. Just to get it out. And as far as supplements, protein shakes, I'll do like a whey protein isolate, because it's been triple filtered. So it takes the lactose out so I can lose weight while getting the protein. I'll do B12, arginine, stuff like that. So, and I may do pre-workout every once in a while. Some days when I get off work, if I'm on nights, I'll get off work at 4:30. And like for me, I had to do, I had to do what I had to do for as far as convenience. So what I would do, I would leave my clothes in the doorway, my workout clothes, because I knew if I got off at 4:30 in the morning, if I sat down, I'd say, well, I'm just gonna sit here for 5 minutes. Then I say, well, you know what? I'm just gonna lay here for 15 minutes and I'm gonna get up, right? And then the next thing you know, it's 1 o'clock and I got time to get up and take a shower and get dressed for work. So I would put my clothes in the doorway. That way I'd have to step over my clothes to get in the house. And I would literally put my clothes on, walk right back out of the door and go to the gym. And I'd go ahead and knock it out. And that way I'm done. So when I do eat, I'm still burning calories, because normally it's right after I get back from the gym and that'll be it. So, it's just little things that you can do. A lot of times people just, they fear working out because they get kind of intimidated, because they look at the big picture. But for me, I have to look at it, I have to kind of take it one day at a time because my weight fluctuates, just kind of depending on what I eat and, and how I eat. So sometimes I'll look and I've gained 2 pounds, and sometimes I'll look and I've lost those 3. And so I had to also tell myself, don't look at that scale because you'll get obsessed with it. So now I just kind of look at how my clothes fit, how I look, how I look in the mirror when I look at myself. And that's kind of how I go. And, try to do my gallon of water a day. It's hard some days, but, you do what you got to do.
And those fruits and vegetables are very important, right?
Absolutely.
Get them in there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Damien. What are your barriers? How has nutrition played a part in your lifestyle now that you know better?
Well, actually, one of the biggest things for me was I started cooking more. A couple of years ago, I went down to, it was something on 119 or something. They had these cooking classes. So when I started cooking more, I was going out getting less fast food. I still, I'm not as healthy as Brother Hale here. So, but that's a good example I could use. But I started cooking more, and that meant I spent less time at McDonald's and Chick-fil-A. And so once I started cooking more, I began to really like to cook. I began to really like to cook. So now, I can walk in the door and I can make those, I can make that asparagus and those Brussels sprouts, and I can eat those vegetables, and I keep fruit on the stand, and I keep nuts and stuff like that. And as far as healthy, I mean, I would walk. I hadn't been to the gym in a while, so knock on wood, I get back in there. But I started walking, and I was motivated by a friend to drink more water, so I bought me a little jug. So now I have a jug of water. But like I said, one of the biggest things for me was I had to stopping at I could tell you what everything, the best things on the menu was with all those fast food places. So once I started cooking more, then I really saw the benefits in that. So.
And you felt better, is that correct?
Exactly.
Because you knew what you were putting into your system, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Great answers.
That's it. And, I'm going to piggyback on that, and I'm going to start with something that one of the students mentioned as well, when they also asked how can the women, the partners in our lives can support us with our overall health. And in answering Mrs. McAdory's question, even for me, it actually started with the health scare. So, the guys talked about when something goes wrong, right? I had a health scare too. Even as I was writing a heart health grant, I had a heart health scare. And so my wife and I sat down and we had to talk it out, what we were going to do and how she could support me in making changes to my life. And it's been an evolution. Brother Hale said, we start thinking about the big picture and we don't want to move. Well, I didn't start running marathons and stuff like that. I started just walking the neighborhood, and I bought a smoothie, a blender machine to make smoothies, and start eating, the recommended vegetables and fruits daily, getting the recommended 150 or more minutes of vigorous to, moderate to vigorous physical activity, brisk walking plus jogging or whatever you can do. Starting to do that, eating, drinking way more water, getting rid of drinking very sparingly, carbonated beverages that are just extra sugar that you don't need. And stop making, and I'm not judging, because I did this stuff. How many of us had the 2-liter pitcher and we put the Kool-Aid powder in the water, and then we just take the container of sugar and we just dump until we just know that it's sweet. That's what I did. So I'm not judging. I'm telling you what I did. And so, stopping doing that, stopping the fast food on a very regular basis, because we got to work and do all this stuff and make all this money and do all this crazy stuff, and not taking into consideration, as what Brother Damien said, which is, health is wealth. And so, being healthy is what's most important. You're not going to be able to earn money if you're in a hospital bed. You're not going to be able to earn money if you're no longer on this side of, the grass. And so, when I got scared and I thought about the kids and the wife and my role, that's when it became a lot more serious for me. And so, for the question about a woman's role, or our brother's role, a partner's role, a friend's role, all of our roles are to support and encourage, strengthen one another so that we can be intentional about our health. I think that's what I heard today. Brother Hale said he puts his clothes at the front door so that if he's gonna miss out on working out, it means he's gonna have to step over those clothes. Brother Damien said that he cooks a lot more. You got to be intentional to cook, because it's easy to drive up in the drive-through line. And you got to be intentional about every process, including turning off the TV sometimes because of all the negativity that is coming in. So we got to be intentional about what we watch, what we hear, what we eat, what we drink, what we do, how active we are. Brother Hale, I do want to just mention, I don't know if you have a copy of your book, but I do, if you have it, I'd love for you to just spend 1 minute talking about your book. You've shared so much this evening, but I think you should share your book, and then we're going to close out for the evening.
Yeah, well, this is a copy of my first book, Ebenezer the Sneezer. I actually wrote it, trying to think, 12 years ago. Wrote it 12 years ago for my oldest daughter. She had severe allergies. And at that age, at the age of 2, pre-K age, 2, 3 years old, they don't understand, unless it's a tummy ache, they don't really understand what's going on. So you can't really tell them, well, these are, she's coughing or she's sneezing because they have allergies. Those kids don't understand what allergies are. So I was seeing half of her friends would stop talking to her, other half would make fun of the situation. And at the time I was writing her bedtime stories, and I kind of slid that one in, because I noticed what was going on. And so I wrote it, as a way to bring a little levity to the situation, just kind of let her know that it was okay to be different. And that's kind of what I tell the kids, it's okay to be different. We're all going to have different hair color, eye color, skin color, things we like, things we don't like, things we eat, things we don't eat. But at the end of the day, we're still all human, and we have a lot more in common than what we have different. So that's what, it's kind of the point that I bring, that I try to drive home. And, you know, I look at a lot of them, and, you know, some have disabilities, whether it's mental or physical. And so I've had a lot of parents come up to me and say, well, hey, you know, my kid doesn't suffer from allergies, or, you know, he or she doesn't sneeze a lot, but this is what's going on with them. And they saw that Ebenezer was okay with it, and we could laugh, you know, we could laugh in spite of. And so it helped out my son or daughter. And so that's really what it's about, you know.
Can you give them a website where they can go and learn more about your writings and learn more about how they can support you?
I do. It's actually my name, www.decoryhell.com.
That's awesome. Thank you, Brother Anderson, Damian Anderson, for joining us this evening and sharing your comments. We really appreciate your transparency and your willing to share with us tonight. Brother Decory Hell, thank you for all that you do in terms of, you know, bringing health and wellness to the younger audience. My kids definitely enjoyed the book, and it's so cool. They got an autographed book from Decory Hell. It's so cool that we were able to do that. But thank you for sharing and being vulnerable tonight. As always, thank you to my interns, Sean and Saniqua, for asking some great questions and getting the conversation started and going. I really appreciate y'all tonight. And Mrs. McAdory, as always, oh, you came with it tonight. I tell you, I wasn't ready for that gap question, that question about when did this possibly change? But again, that's just that wisdom and that knowledge that you bring, and you're out there in the community every day helping the men and women, and so we so appreciate all your efforts as well. Thank you also for watching tonight's Wellness Watch. You know, we had some great content going on. I didn't want to cut it off. Normally we're about 30 to 40 minutes, but hearing the brothers speak tonight about the real challenges that we experience, y'all, as African-American men and in our community, y'all, we have higher rates and higher risk for hypertension, higher risk for diabetes. We have different amounts of serious psychological distress that we may be experience that others don't experience because of the different challenges that we go through as African-American men. There are higher rates for certain types of cancer, like prostate cancer and colon cancer, where we die as African-American men. Our risk of death is greater because we don't go to the doctor, because we don't get screened, because we don't go get checked out early. And these are all things that we got to do on top of being intentional about our physical activity, eating fruits and vegetables, cutting out sugary beverages, drinking more water, getting more sleep. Like, you know, I know if just nod your head to Corey and Damian if you heard this. Hey, well, you know, I mean, last night I only got 4 hours sleep because I worked double, and you know, I'm good. You know, I'm good with this 4 hours. Brothers, I'm not knocking it because I did it too. But I can tell you this much: if you continue to, it's one of the reasons why African-American men have a lower life expectancy than most other racial groups, most other gender groups. Because what we're doing is what some people call John Henryism. And if you know the fable of John Henry, he swung that hammer to beat that machine until he couldn't swing that hammer no more. The machine kept on going. He won the battle against the machine, but he paid the price with his death. And brothers, we got to put our health first, especially if we're going to continue to protect, promote, grow, build our families and our community. And so, brothers, let's be intentional about our health. Let's be serious about our health, and let's all support one another as brothers and sisters, as we, you know, work to live well and be well. For more information, you can check us out at www.wilkinsonwellnesslab.com. You can also see us on Facebook, where you'll see this video and others as we've covered different topics. I invite you to engage, to post comments and questions. And as always, continue to support one another, love one another, and let's be strong, fit, and fair to one another as well. Y'all, we love you. We thank you. We thank you for watching. And until next time, see you next Monday.